So, a black pastor is planning to sue police in Alabama after he was handcuffed and arrested for watering his neighbor's plants while they were on vacation. Check this out, y'all.
There's a suspicious person in the yard, and if you're not one to identify yourself.
I don't have to identify myself. I live right over there across the street. Who called y'all?
That's what we got to figure out.
The black man
He don't live.
His neighbor problem. You think
I'm not saying nothing about.
You have no right to approach me if I ain't did nothing suspicious or nothing wrong.
Sir.
You want to lock me up? Lock me up.
And lock him up, they did. Who's right, who's wrong? I mean, eventually a neighbor came out and said, oh my goodness, it's my fault. I called, I didn't recognize him. He is our neighbor. He is watering the plants. Our neighbor is on vacation. Oh, Lord, mercy me. Who wants it?
It's Alabama, and that's absolutely ridiculous. Broad daylight. This man is watering the grass, and he's being criminalized. If this lady cared that much, she should have walked 15 feet and looked at him and said, oh, that's Bert, and took her behind back in the house. And for her calling and being that lazy and dumb, something should happen to her. We've got to send a message to the others that you can't be this lazy in your reporting. She could have gotten that man killed. And what criminal is sitting there watering grass and water? Like, obviously, he was either asked to do that or he was doing something nice. And I don't understand why we're the only group that can't even do something nice without having the cops called on us. Man's watering the plants while black.
Not only was he watering the plants, he had a whole car with a license plate in the driveway.
I mean, gardening.
That's the suspicious thing. That's what's suspicious. It's suspicious. Somebody called it suspicious.
Yeah, right. Gardening is one of the things we're supposed to be allowed to do, right? You know, pick cotton, water plants. Now we can't even do that. I love this pastor. I love his attitude. I'd love to go to his church. But I'm not sure, Alicia, that if she had walked across the street, she would know it was her neighbor, because for some Karens, we all look alike.
And the mic has been dropped.
There was a video, Dominique, where she did come out and she told the cops she knew him.
Yeah.
You know, so that was the only problem. Like, she did acknowledge that, oh, my bad kind of thing. But by then the damage had been done.
Yeah, they told him, they told her that they couldn't unarrest him, Dr. Oleka.
Well, honestly, the saddest thing about this is the fact that it always seems to escalate to some level where there are unnecessary tensions. I mean, you all pointed out how this was totally unnecessary. If a neighbor saw somebody she didn't recognize watering plants, just you could wander over there and see who it was, and eventually you would learn who this person was. Or the fact that this guy, the pastor watering the plants, was immediately put in the position where he had to feel like he was being accused, and he was, but the fact that he had to be put in that position because the state of affairs in our society is a problem, and the fact that the officers felt like they had to do what they had to do was a problem too. It speaks to the fact that because people are in different positions or different professions or different races, or they just don't know their neighbors well enough, we're in these positions where people don't get along where they could. I mean, I hate to sound like, you know, an old man, but why can't we just get along?
Why can't we all just get along? Ed, so he refused to give them his ID. His wife came and gave them his ID, and that's when he said, I'm sorry, ma'am, I can't unarrest him.
Yeah, I mean, that's the part that really gets silly, right? Like, as an officer, you know, you hope that there's some measure of discretion in handling something like this. You know, I think when I watched the video, the little quote that he had there at the end was, you know, talking about his neighbor, his friend. You know, he's going to be so pissed that I got arrested after he asked me to water his lawn. And I can only imagine the feeling of his neighbor, right? Like, man, would you look after my lawn? And, you know, to Alicia's point, this is something that could have cost this man his life. And, you know, for so many of these neighborhoods in our country, these apps that keep track of, you know, nuisances and whatnot, we're quickly becoming to like this Karen enabling society where it's like, hey, there's somebody suspicious, we got to deal with them. And police officers by now should have some measure of sense, like, you know, how to act. And that's just not the case there in the South. That's the case.
Right. I don't know that his neighbor will be kind of upset or disturbed that it happened, as opposed to Oh, sure hate that happened, Bert. His name is not Bert, by the way.